We are started recording in progress, Zoom says to me, and already we've got attendees in the room. So thank you for joining me so quickly. We are going to have such a good time tonight. And I don't know about you, but I know that many of you today were out in the garden. It feels like a summer day today. I was at Country Garden most of the day answering your questions, and I know that many of you were saying, well, I want to join you at 5, but I maybe want to work in the garden. And that is a wonderful thing, isn't it? What a great time of year. What a time filled with possibilities. So we're going to talk about a lot of those possibilities today. 4 containers, great, particularly annual plants for containers. We're going to also get to your questions. Now, I always start out, as you well know, if you've joined me before, asking you, if you've been with me before, what's in your glass tonight? It's a happy hour, what's in your glass? And I'll tell you what's in my glass, sparkling water, because I was talking with people all day at Country Garden, yak, 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 and I'm dehydrated. So I've got sparkling water tonight until I am done with this. But I want to live vicariously and find out, are you drinking a cup of tea? Do you have a cocktail? Glass of wine? You drinking water? Yeah, tell me what is in your glass. I always love to see that because it's not what's in the glass, of course, it's important. It's that we are taking time together to sit back, take a deep breath, raise our glasses, no matter what is in them, to each other and to plants and gardens, and just having a great time. I also love seeing in chat if it's your first time on a happy hour, or if you are watching on Facebook Live, put it in comment sections. Is this your first time on a happy hour tonight? I love to know that. So do comment on that. Also, for those people who have not joined in on a Zoom ever before, chat can be found the little speech bubble that's either at the bottom or the side of your screen, depending on your device. And you click on that. Oh, several first timers. Thank you. Wonderful, wonderful. Welcome, welcome. Click on that little speech bubble and you can see the window pop up where you can make comments either just to me, the host and panelists. I am host and this is my panelist here. You can make comments just to us, or you can make comments that everybody can see. You have that choice, all right? Chat is also the way that you can put questions at the end of the session, all right? So I'm gonna get the slides going pretty soon because it's 2 minutes after 5, and what are we waiting for? But know that if you have questions that come up, do by all means type them into chat. I will take as many as I can until 6 o'clock. 6 o'clock, time to go to dinner, all right? But until 6 o'clock, I will take as many as I can. But by the way, I will save all the chat comments. And if there are many that I haven't got to, I would say more than 3 that I haven't gotten to because we ran out of time, I will put those questions in a special blog post on the Hyannis Country Garden website and answer them there. So particularly if you have questions about something not related to annuals and containers that you might want to ask, put them in the chat. And if I don't get to them after the presentation, we will put them on the blog at hyanniscountrygarden.com. Question was, are there handouts? There are never handouts for happy hours. Happy hours are free and there are never handouts. So that gives me, I'm so glad you mentioned it, Anne, because if you want to remember something on a slide, there are 2 things you can do, all right? You can take a screenshot or have your cell ready and take a picture of what's on the slide. So if you want to remember certain plant names, that's the thing to do. The other thing you can do is that This is going to be recorded on Facebook Live. It is being recorded on Facebook Live. You could always go back and watch again and kind of fast forward to the plant information that you want to remember. Okay, so it's the difference between Sunday seminars that we charge for and the happy hours is that the Sunday seminars, you get a handout and all those plant names, which takes me a lot of time to prepare. The happy hours, we're just sitting back and relaxing, and you can take shots with your phone. So that said, let's get to the presentation because I have so much to share with you tonight. It's going to be wonderful. And it is plant combinations for containers, all right? And we are talking about great plants for pots and boxes. But before you plant, I want you to think about a couple of things. I want you to think about what you want your containers to do. All right, because a lot of us love planting containers, but containers can have very specific functions in our properties. Now, do you want them to have a lot of flower power? I'm all for flower power myself. And this, of course, is a collection of, excuse me, various mandevilla vines down at a trade show where I attended. So do you want flower power from your containers? Do you want an understated display in front of, say, a hedge that you have? Maybe you want containers to provide a sense of place. You know, this is my front porch. I like my front porch to say Cape Cod, right? Because that's where I live. So that's one thing that I want my containers to do. Do you want your containers to draw the eye from problems? Here is a place in somebody's landscape where the deer ate all the hostas and there's no shrub in the back to hide utilities. So perfect place for some tall, wonderful containers, right? To stop the eye and to take the eye away from the eaten hostas or whatever visual problem you have. Maybe you want a container to soften an entertaining area, like on this patio. Or maybe you want to grow vegetables, herbs, or other edibles. Think about what you want your containers to do for you, because that will help guide you in the plants you choose. Secondly, what is your taste, right? Now, maybe you like the traditional pink and blue and white, like this window box that I photographed in Nantucket. And by the way, this is a good list of pink and blue and white. That's not what's necessarily in this window box. In this window box, there is diamond frost euphorbia and snow princess lobularia, but the blue is lobelia, which, as you know, if you've planted it, tends to kind of stop blooming in midsummer. And these are petunias, which also get kind of long and lanky and flowers at the end of them. So I'm suggesting if you want that white and blue and pink classic combo, you go with these 4 plants. And you can take a screenshot or shoot it with your cell phone or come back to the recording in order to remember it. Maybe you want your containers to be more of a wild look, more of that field look. And if that is the look that you want, these plants are for you. Grasses, rushes, the juncus, the rushes, the sedums, perennial sage, and gaura. All of those have that wild field look like you saw in that window box. When are you going to see your containers? Because that might influence what you choose. Now, these are 2 plants that I love. Purslane, which is the bright orange here, and Evolvulus, and both of these are from Proven Winners. Gorgeous plants in the sun. Great plants if you're out in around the pool when the sun is out. But this is what those plants do at night. the flowers close up in the evening when the sun goes down. So if you primarily see your containers in the evening, you don't want those two plants, do you? You want white snow princess and other plants that you are going to see in the evening or at night. Now, just a quick reminder, don't clutter the bottom of your pots with rock shards or other debris, all right? Because roots go to the bottom of a pot, right? And they go around at the bottom. And if you put rocks or shards or other things there for drainage, that's what we all were taught, right? Then the roots end up back down in those rocks and shards. Don't do that, okay? What is for drainage? The drainage hole. That is what is for drainage. You leave it open. You fill the entire pot with soil. And what if you have a pot that doesn't have a drainage hole? This is what you do with it. You fill it with water and make a lovely floral display when you're having friends over for cocktails. And other than that, you leave it empty because you shouldn't be growing plants in a pot without a drainage hole. End of story. And if you get one of the pots that doesn't have a drainage hole, be sure and drill that hole before you plant the plant. Fill the entire container with good quality potting mix. I like Coast of Maine or the Espoma Organic myself. Those are the two that I use for most of my containers, both very good quality potting mixes. And you don't cover the drainage hole, not with a rock, not with a seashell, not with a piece of paper towel. The drainage hole is for drainage. All right. But if you have a really, really, really large container, I give you permission to do this, like my livestock troughs that I have on my deck. I hope you come and see them during the Hydrangea Festival. But this is what I did with those. I put some upside down crates and two plastic flower pots. And then I lined the troughs with smart pots. That's the key. If you are putting anything else in the bottom, you want to line that container with smart pots so that that holds a deep amount of potting soil, and B, all of the roots. And then you fill it with that good potting soil and you are off and ready to plant. Now, here is a tip for all summer fertilizing of your containers, window boxes and pots. Number one, of course, you're using hopefully mostly or half at least, or all fresh potting soil. Don't try and recycle potting soil for more than a couple of years. And if you are trying to recycle, only use half of the old stuff and put in half new, all right? But then use some time-release synthetic fertilizer with an equal amount of organic fertilizer. This is what I use in my containers, my annual containers. I use Shake and Feed from Miracle-Gro, and the reason I use that instead of Osmocote is that it's higher in nitrogen, and annuals are nitrogen hogs, all right? And then I also use Plant Tone. If I run a Plant Tone, I might use Rose Tone or Flower Tone, any of the tones, but I like Plant Tone because, again, it's a higher percentage of nitrogen. Now, why do you want to use both of these? Because the synthetic, the Miracle-Gro product, right, that feeds from the get-go. That starts your plants off. And let's face it, summer is short, right? We want those plants to have a pretty quick boost the first week that they are in. That's why we use part synthetic fertilizer. But that synthetic fertilizer, even though the label says it's good for 3 months, basically about the end of July, it stops feeding. That's when the organic kicks in, because you may not realize it, but organic fertilizers take at least 6 weeks to become available to plants. So just at the time that the synthetic is stopping, that organic is becoming available. If you put equal parts of these, and how much you use depends on the size of your container. So no, I'm not going to tell you exactly how much. You got to figure it out from the label. Read the label, people, all right? Because the different containers take different amounts. But equal parts of these, mix it into the soil before you plant, and you are good to go. And you are giving those annuals the nitrogen that they need to produce more flowers. So stir it into the potting mix and you're ready to go. Now, when it comes to summer annuals, pack them in. Again, life is short. And Paula, I should have mentioned this. I don't answer raised hands because it's too hard to do this presentation and answer, keep track of it all. Okay, so what you can do is type your question in chat. And after I am done with this presentation, I will come back to chat and I will answer the questions as they appear in chat. All right. So summer annuals, pack them in because the summer is short and we want things to look good from the get-go. They're not going to be as full, of course, from the minute you plant them. They're going to continue to get fuller, and you have to expect, this is key, you have to expect that some of those annuals will like explode and kind of become the dominant plantings, and then some of them may not continue. For example, in these containers, this lobelia is probably going to stop flowering in the heat of July. But in the containers that have more than the lobelia, the geraniums and the plectranthus and the salvia, they're going to be the ones that are going to take over and carry the show, right? So you want to include plants where their, mission is the show must go on. This is the most important thing. I know you've all heard that kind of tired formula, filler, spiller, chiller, thriller, whatever. And that's fine. It's basically about you want something upright and you want something kind of round and you want something over the edge. Valid way to look at it. But when it comes to design, if you choose a thriller, a filler, and a spiller that have all little green leaves or all, the same texture, you are going to miss out on excitement. And if you choose maybe all white flowers might be interesting, or different shades of pink, but I would say that you go for complements and contrasts in both foliage and flowers. And I'm going to show you several examples. When complements, I mean color echoes, or things that are similar that repeat, whether it's a flower shape or a color. And when it comes to contrast, that's about size and texture and color as well. So let's look at a few things. All right, here is a nice container display. It is a shady container display. And what complements here, the color echoes, are the peach and the orange are repeated several times, right? You have several containers with peach or orange. You have several plants that have purple leaves or touches of purple. Here's a begonia, a Rex begonia with touches of purple. Here's a little coleus with touches of burgundy, which is like purple. That's a complement or an echo to purple. And then we've got the oxalis and the begonia down here and oxalis up here. So that repeats the purple. And then the yellow of the hackone grass is repeated by the yellow of the begonias up here. So that in this particular arrangement are the complements. The contrasts are the purple, yellow, and green foliage. It's not all green, right? It's not all yellow. It's not all purple. You've got the various colors of leaves. Then you've also got big leaves and small leaves and grasses. So you've got different textures of plants as well. So we got big begonia leaves and small begonia leaves and hackone grass and fiber optic grass. That all provides the contrast, and you've got different size flowers. So this is an example of a great arrangement that has both complements, color echoes, right, and contrast. And it's begonias, these are Gardenmeister fuchsias, and the various grasses. And this is a great shade arrangement. Now, here is an arrangement that was done for the Melody Tent by Hyannis Country Garden. And here we have what complements purple and pink. Purple is a combination of blue and pink, right? Blue and red. And so pink echoes purple. And you've got the pink here echoing the purple of the Alternanthera, and you've got the pink echoing the purple of the cordyline. You've got the purple flowers of the scabola here. And so, and you've got the white repeated in the euphorbia and the white repeated here in the cleome. So that is what you've got complementary in this container. The contrast, you've got upright leaves, spiky leaves, and you've got trailing things, right? So you've got a fine texture here, and you've got bigger leaves here. You've got white flowers contrasting with purple and contrasting with green lime leaves. So, you know, that's the contrast in this arrangement. And I don't have pictures of it as it got bigger, but it just got more spectacular. This is a list of the plants that were in this pot. So if you want to remember that, take a shot with your phone right now, or take a screenshot, or know that you can come back to the recording either on Facebook Live or next week on the Hyannis Country Garden events page. Here is another fabulous container done for the Melody Tent. And here we have the same sort of thing, right? Contrasting, we've got lime sweet potato vine, and we've got green foliage, right? We've got fine textures of the euphorbia and the snow princess, and then we've got the bigger leaves of both the salvia and the New Guinea impatiens. So this also has a combination. Oh, and by the way, there's also, I didn't put, I don't think in here, that looks like a lime colored coleus back there, which echoes the lime of the sweet potato vine. So this is a combination that has all of that, complements and contrasts. Here's another example. This is a shade pot. We've got purple oxalis, we've got begonias of 2 different colors here, and we've got a coleus. And by the way, if you've got shade containers, these are plants to remember, right? And there are a million different begonias. We're going to see a few of them in a minute. Here is one of my troughs. Here we have the contrast of the spiky King Tut papyrus. This is one of my must-have plants for big containers because they are tall, they are dramatic, and they catch the rays of the setting sun. I must have Salvia black and blue and Kufia vermillionaire. These are 2 hummingbird magnets. And so I must have those in my containers on my deck. And then in this one, I had a wave petunia and some New Guinea impatiens to kind of fill things out and for that touch of pink. This is a new texture plant this year, Queen Tut papyrus. I think it was introduced last year maybe, but Queen Tut is a great plant for putting, it's not as tall as King Tut, but has that great spiky texture. And you know, this bright green combines with purple so beautifully, or with pink, beautiful. Now, some plants are best for early season fillers. And this is one of them, the osteospermum. You can find them in several colors, and of course, pansies. Both of those are early season fillers that are wonderful into mid to late June, but with the heat of July tend to stop flowering. Calibrachoa, here you see it in this container that I planted one year. I use Calibrachoa for an early season color filler because it looks gorgeous through the end of May and June. But then the other plants in here are going to take off and be the ones that predominate in the wintertime. And these are just some of these for early color. If you want to plant your pots and boxes now, or maybe next week, for those of us who are prudent, we're not doing them immediately, but for those of, if you want to plant your pots and boxes in May, know that these plants are not known for flowering all summer. There are some Calibrachoa that last longer than others, but lobelia and pansies and bacopa, that sweet little white thing, osteospermum and cineraria, the blue daisies, and gerbera daisies, they are wonderful for early color, but they are not going to be there for the long haul through July and August and September. Okay, so let's look at some annuals that are going to be there for the long haul. Number one, profusion zinnias. And remember the word profusion, because these are especially suited to containers. You don't have to deadhead them. Great in full sun, great in window boxes, come in several colors, and Lordy, you can find them in 6-packs. So inexpensive. So watch for profusion zinnias. Sun patiens, and I love them all. There are two ones that I am particularly fond of. This one, which is the variegated salmon sun patiens. And by the way, just because it's called sun patiens doesn't mean you have to plant it in the sun. It means that it tolerates the sun. You can plant it in part shade. The only thing you don't want to plant either New Guineas or sun patiens in is deep shade, all right? Use begonias for that. Sun patiens also comes in variegated white. So you got the yellow, you got the green, and you got the white or the salmon. You can't go wrong. Fuchsia, Garden Meister Bonstedt. An upright fuchsia, you can use it in full sun. You can use it in part shade, all but the deepest shade. I love coral. You can put coral together with any other color. It spices up your pastels, right? And it adds to the brighter combinations with the oranges and the reds and the yellows. So coral can go in any direction that you like. And it's particularly effective with blue and yellow and white and purple. Scaevola is one of my favorite annuals for containers. It spills over edges. You can find it in blue. You can find it in pink, but between you and me and the rest of Facebook Live, I think the pink is a little wimpy. I could be a little opinionated about that, but I love the white. A few years ago, they improved the white, and look at this. This is 2 Scaevolas in this huge pot, and they kind of took over the pot. Really a lovely, lovely plant. And here is a blue Scaevola in a pot with a mandevilla and a petunia. Scaevola, by the way, mixes very well with petunias. And the reason is, first of all, you have the contrast of flower shape, round, larger petunia flowers, and the small fan-shaped Scaevola flowers. Win-win, all right? Secondly, petunias bloom at the end of their long stems. And so if you combine them with a little bit bushier of a plant like a Scaevola, it hides the long green stems. Inside this pot, there's like 12, 14 inches of plain green stem hair of these petunias. You'd never know it because the Scaevola covers it up. So good combo here. I love the Catharanthus. This is often called flowering vinca. The Soiree Kawaii series are smaller flowers. And there's one here, that's one of them right there. And they mix well with other plants as well. These particular shots was a year that they sent me test plants. And so I planted them by themselves to see what they would do. This one I did put in a mandevilla in the back, but they play well with others. So watch for these plants as well. And Gomphrena plays well with others in containers. Many Gomphrenas are fairly short and they last a long time and they love the heat. If you have a hot place with a container, Gomphrenas can mix in beautifully. Dorotheanus is a nice trailing kind of a succulent plant, good to combine with other succulents, particularly in small containers. If you have little wall pockets, like this little one that my friend Pamela gave me, look for this, Dorotheanus. You can find them both in the greenhouse in our fairy garden section, little ones, and you can find bigger ones in the proven winners section. So a nice trailing plant that doesn't get too big, right? So good smaller plant. And of course, the mandevillas. They come in pink, they come in white, they come in red, they come, oh, now yellow and apricot. Many people are familiar with them for just growing by themselves, but these deserve to be combined with other plants. And you will see in a minute a few examples of that. This is your shade mix extraordinaire. Okay, if you have shade, you want begonias. That's what the pink here and the peach are, and the little light pink, okay? You want caladiums, the heart-shaped leaves that have white and pink and green, and you probably want Persian shield as well. All of these are great shade container plants, great in hanging baskets, great in urns, great in troughs or in bowls. And one of my favorite things in a shade garden is to put an older piece of furniture in there and put a pot on it, or 2 pots or 3 pots, and grow shade plants so that you have the color up above the things that we know carry a shade garden, like the ferns and the hostas. And there are so many begonias now. These are firefly, and I like them because some of them are single and some of them are semi-double. So a fun plant for shade and pretty colors. There are baby wing begonias that are a little bit bigger than the normal wax begonias. They're sort of a combination between the dragon wing and the angel wing and the wax begonias. There's something in between. So these are nice. And then there are the bonfire begonias and the Rex begonias. The purple leaves in the middle here are Rex begonias, and the bonfire or the Santa Cruz. There's several varieties of the trailing bright begonias that are so pretty. Waterfall series. I mean, how gorgeous is that, right? Beautiful in a window box or a container, kind of semi-draining. And then Solenia begonias, they look like little roses. You can find them in yellow and peach and pink and red and white. And the thing about Solenia is that they do well in sun or shade. So if you've got 2 urns on either side of your front door, and one of them is in sun and one of them is in shade, and you want them to match, Solenia begonias, you know, take a picture of this name because that's what you want. I love Browalia Endless Illumination. This is a proven winners plant, and it is a blue for shade that does not stop flowering when it gets hot. So to my mind, far superior to that blue lobelia, which we all know is lovely. But if you want it to bloom all summer, you have to move to Alaska in order to have that happen. But Browalia is wonderful. This is my box that only gets 2 hours of early morning sun, and that is it. And the Browalia is spectacular all summer and into the fall. I love not only the Snow Princess lobularia, but Frosty Night. That's this one is a great one. There are several others. So I'm going to show you another one in a minute. So proven winners, alyssum, and they flower non-stop from the time you put them in until hard frost in October. So look for these lobularias. I can't get enough of them in my containers. Really troopers of a plant. And I do like lemon slice calibrachoa. I have found that for me, lemon slice blooms longer than other calibrachoas. Now let's look at plant combinations, which is why we're here, of course. And first of all, let's look at foliage combinations, because you can make an amazing container just with foliage colors and textures. This is one that I did one year, again, just going for the different textures and colors of foliage. And that is how it looked in sort of end of July, as it was filling out a gorgeous container that was in my garden here in Osterville, got some morning sun and afternoon shade. Don't overlook the succulents. You can shop for succulents in our greenhouse 12 months of the year, and they make wonderful containers. This happened to be a window box done all with succulents. And this is a wall basket done all with succulents. Some of these annuals, like the purslane on the ends, you know, the portulacas, some of them perennials, and some like this one, probably more of a house plant. So you can use a combination, and at the end of the summer, the perennials, like this probably sedum autumn joy and these stone crops, you can plant in the garden. So double duty. So do check out the succulents, especially if you are a person that doesn't water frequently, or maybe you're gone, you're working, you know, in the middle of the week, and so the plants don't get the water that they might want. Go for the succulents there. And this one up at Avant Gardens, when I visited my friend Kathy Tracy, and again, plants that are all drought tolerant. Foliage first here, foliage first. Now let's look at flower combos. All right. Every year I do something different, and you'll see a few of the same urns here. This one in front of the garage, and moving from top to bottom clockwise, we've got Persian Shield up here. And by the way, this is the south side of my house. So Persian Shield does very well in shade, but also, as you can see, in sun. Argyranthemum daisies here. You got to deadhead them. Just a word to the wise. If you don't want a deadhead, don't use that plant. You got to deadhead them. All right. Lantana loves it hot, loves the butterflies and the bees. Purslane right here. I probably took this in the evening when the flowers were closed, but purslane also does well in hot, dry locations. This one is Oregano Kent Beauty, an ornamental oregano that it'll break your heart because it's so gorgeous with the paper-like flowers that it has. And finally, an Angelonia up here on this side. So again, purple and purple, color echoes, the center of the yellow daisies here, and the yellow in the lantana, color echoes, the white and the white here, right? And the contrast between the purple and the green, little flowers, the big flowers, the upright. All right, it's got it all. This one I used a Madagascar palm, which is actually a cacti, and I put that in the container one year with other heat, drought loving plants, the gray-green Echeveria succulent, the purple heart-set Cressia, and the purslane flowers. This is a very drought-tolerant container that had a lot of interest to it with the succulents. Take a breath. Cordyline, upright purple. Love it. Sun Patience right here. Kufia vermillionaire, a hummingbird magnet. I must have them on all sides of my house for the hummers. And another plant that I must have somewhere, Macardonia Gold Dust. It is a spiller in a container, little yellow flowers, so it brightens up just about any combination. This year, what the year pictured, I should say, I used Macardonia Gold Dust here. I used Scaevola, the blue on the sides. And then this is one of the Senorita Blanca Cleomes from Proven Winners. Senorita Blanca will fill a fairly big container. So these urns are probably 20 inches across, and I only needed one Senorita Blanca in each one to fill up that container. Here we have pelargonium. I put on pelargonium instead of geranium because the true perennial geraniums are the real geraniums. Yeah, we call these geraniums, but get used to pelargonium too, because that's a little more accurate. Heliotrope, the purple, very fragrant. Both of these plants do better when you deadhead them. Then Diacia here, the twin spur. This is probably one of the Proven Winners, Diacia, and the licorice plant. So again, you can see the contrast and how beautiful those plants interplay. And this is the key to a mixed container, is you don't try and control it, all right? You plant it in good potting soil, you put in that fertilizer combo that I gave you, you plant in a lot of plants, and then you let them figure it out, and it'll be gorgeous. This is the year that I used yellow mandevilla and a vining geranium and this lobularia, and this is how it turned out toward the end of the summer. So early summer here when it was first planted, and later summer, man, was that spectacular. And I loved how the Balkan pink ivy geraniums kind of poked through all of the Moonlight Night lobularia. And this Moonlight Night has a little more of a yellow color to it, which of course echoed the yellow of the mandevilla plants. Salvia, Rockin' Fuchsia from Proven Winners, Macardonia Gold Dust. Salvias are hummingbird magnets. Plant them, plant them. You will have hummers be very happy. I don't have to have hummingbird feeders because I have natural feeders in my property, including the Kufias and the Salvias. So this one is a King Tut papyrus in the middle, Salvia black and blue for the hummers, Salvia Rockin' Fuchsia for the hummers. I've got Snow Princess lobularia for my heart, right? And I've got a pink geranium on the sides. I have in here two varieties of Kufia. One is David Verity, which gets huge, and one is Vermillionaire, and that is how that container looked later in the summer. So big, exuberant, gorgeous hummingbirds, and lovely plant. And even the Calibrachoa kind of stuck with it down here later into July. I can tell this shot was taken in July because the daylilies are in flower. Here's a begonia and a mandevilla. As I mentioned, don't hesitate to combine mandevillas with other plants. And also mandevillas are remarkably shade tolerant. In this place on my deck, it only got about 3 hours of morning sun, and they both did beautifully. And if you do have more shade, here, this box, 2 hours of morning sun. All right, and it had mandevilla. You can see it's blooming. There is moonflower in here, not blooming yet because it was a little bit too early. Moonflower tends to bloom later. Balcon impatiens, and Balcon impatiens, by the way, are impervious to impatiens downy mildew. So I didn't have to worry that they were going to get downy mildew and die. And that Broalia that I spoke of, Broalia in endless illumination, really pretty here with only 2 hours of morning sun. Look to plants that are traditionally thought of as house plants for your shade containers. This is a place on my front porch that gets very, very little direct sun. So cannas, begonias, ficus, croton. There's a fern, asparagus fern in here, all shopped for in the greenhouse section at Hyannis Country Garden, because all those tropical plants are really good in dappled sunlight or shade. Caladiums, the heart shape, and begonias. We saw those earlier, can't go wrong in the shade. And in this, fuchsias and impatiens and torrenia, a lovely shade container. All right, before we get to questions, which I'm going to right now, I want to remind you about two places on our website, which a lot of you, I think, don't know about. When you go to hyanniscountrygarden.com right here, go and look under resources. Under resources, you will find three things. First is Best for Cape Cod. These are downloadable lists of plants that do really well here on the Cape. All right. So if you have a lot of plant shopping to do, download these lists and bring them into the garden center, because these are plants that are known to do well on Cape. The second place to go is informational handouts. When you go to informational handouts page, you can download how to prune a hydrangea, garden plant terms to know, top vegetables for Cape Cod, common insects. Why doesn't my blue hydrangea bloom? You know, there are so many, and this is only the top of the page. So many handouts here, including how to plant a shrub or a tree. So go and check out this page so that then you can download these things. And of course, in that informational page is also the blog, which I write and update once a week. All right, so let's get out and let's get back to chat and getting to your questions. I'm going to open up the chat here and we're going to start, and I will remind you that I will answer the questions as they came in. And if I don't get to all of them, know that I will take the ones I didn't get to and I will answer them on the blog in a special blog post. All right, so I want to do a container gardening with hydrangea plants and other plants that go well with them. What do you recommend for potted hydrangeas? Well, for the first year or two, you can have that hydrangea in a container with plants like that Snow Princess lobularia would be perfect with a hydrangea, or Mecardonia gold dust with the little yellow flowers would be perfect with a hydrangea. If you keep that hydrangea in the pot from year to year, and by the way, you'll have to bring it into an unheated garage. You can't leave it outside and expect it to live. But if you bring it in after you've had it a couple years, the hydrangea is going to fill out and fill that container. So you won't have room so much for other things. And by the way, hydrangeas tolerate being in pots for years without upgrading them. I have 5 hydrangeas in pots that, I kid you not, are 12 inches square. And they have been in those pots for, I think, 14 years now. Never repotted them. The only thing I do is put some compost or earthworm castings on the top and a little holly tone in the spring, and that's it. So what do you think of Gaura sweet potato vine would be good together? I think Gaura and sweet potato vine are good together. The sweet potato vine for cascading and the Gaura for fine and upright, but you need something else that's going to be a little rounder there. Biden's Goldilocks rocks would be a good one to combine. Any of the New Guinea impatiens would be another one to combine. Any of the Bidens, actually, and there are a lot of them. So anything that's kind of a little more bushy, because the Gaura is very fine and grass-like. And so, you know, you need something that's going to tie the grass-like with the sweet potato vine. And my favorite pick would be one of the Bidens. Okay to plant herbs in one big pot. Rosemary, thyme, sage, will they play well? Yes, they will play well for a couple of years. At a certain point, the sage is going to get bigger and the rosemary is going to get bigger. Rosemary probably overwinters in the house the best of all of those. But certainly for this year, be fine in a pot. Then you can make the decision. If you bring the pot in for the winter and use the herbs during the winter, and whatever does well, and what doesn't, fine. Or you can move the sage and the thyme into the garden somewhere and bring the rosemary in. Or you can leave them all outside to die in the pot and say, thanks for coming, bye. So any one of those strategies is all fine. Where did you get that stock container? I got it years ago from a feed store online. Country Garden has some that are similar now, tin kind of raised beds, but I think they don't have a bottom, but you should come in and check what we've got right now because we've got a similar look. And if you want one with a bottom, farm stores usually have them, maybe Tractor Supply. All right. What can I plant in a window box with full shade? Caladiums and begonias. Caladiums and begonias. And if you want something that drapes, and Broalia would be good in there too, but caladiums and begonias would be great. And then for draping, variegated ivy would be lovely. So that's what I would do in full shade. I have 4 window boxes, 1 sun and 1 afternoon shade, shade afternoon, 1 full sun, part sun. Okay. You want the Solenia begonias, Chris. Solenia begonias. They look like little roses and they would do well in all those boxes. And then you might also want sweet potato vine, whether it's the purple or the lime green cascading, they do well in those conditions. And if you need another plant, then you could put in either one of the rushes, the juncus that we sell in the Proven Winners section, like I think one is called Mojave Blue or something like that. That would be a nice contrasting texture. Or the Dracaena spikes, just the traditional spikes would be a nice contrasting texture to the caladiums, begonias, and the sweet potato vine. Let's see. Will you have some containers with a mix of flowers and veggies? I didn't in this particular presentation, but you absolutely can mix them, all right? And one of the best vegetables that mixes with flowers are peppers, whether sweet peppers, hot peppers, those plants in a big container, a pepper plant as your upright plant, and then flowers and herbs around. Parsley are great. You could plant some arugula as a filler or one of the lettuces because lettuces are so gorgeous, right? So, and then the flower of your choice. And you can even go edible flowers, calendula and marigolds. Marigolds are edible and maybe not that delicious, but calendula don't have a strong flavor. And you sprinkle those orange or yellow calendula petals on a salad and or gorgeous, or on top of a bread or on top of a pizza. And nasturtiums, put nasturtiums in with other plants because nasturtiums, both the leaves and the flowers are edible. So you could put those in with an eggplant or a pepper plant and it would be a stunning container. Where do you get plant stands? Well, we have plant stands at Country Garden, so come check out, okay? We have both feet that go under pots to hold pots up, and that's a good thing on decks to keep those wet pots off of your deck. And then we have wire plant stands as well. So come in and check out what we've got. The other thing that I love to do is I love to repurpose things like old chairs as a plant stand. Come and see my garden during the Hydrangea Festival and you'll see a couple examples of that. What takes hot afternoon sun? All right, scaevola takes hot afternoon sun. The geraniums, pelargoniums take hot afternoon sun. Any of the succulents, of course, take hot afternoon sun. The purslane verbena, trailing verbena, takes hot afternoon sun. Macardonia gold dust, that little sweet yellow one, loves hot sun. So all of those would be good. And I appreciate hearing that these were a comfort during COVID, because I appreciate hearing that. You know, there's nothing more life affirming than plants and gardens, right? So it was a good thing to do during the pandemic. I used to plant my flowers in Miracle Grow fertilized soil. Is that a bad idea? You know what, Katie? I think Miracle Grow is an okay product. I have used it myself, all right? The amount of fertilizer in it is not that much. So you would still want to add some plant tone or shake and feed, because it doesn't have that much fertilization. My only quarrel about Miracle Grow potting soil is they won't tell you what's in it, because they want to be able to dodge and weave the ingredients. I don't know. And that kind of annoyed me. Other than that, I have had good success with it when I have used it. So I would not be afraid of it, certainly. All right. I missed your recommended fertilizer mixture. Could you mention it again? Absolutely. It's equal parts Miracle Grow Shake and Feed, which is a synthetic time release fertilizer, comes in a jug. I bought a new one today, and plant tone, or if you already have it, flower tone or rose tone. I like plant tone because it's higher in nitrogen. And that's why I like Miracle Grow Shake and Feed, because it's got a higher percentage of nitrogen. And annuals are nitrogen hogs. They bloom at the end of new growth. And what stimulates new growth? Nitrogen. So that's why I like that combination. So you use the 1 part organic and 1 part the shake and feed. And the amount that you use depends on your container. So read the labels and figure it out. Okay, because I can't give you a definite. I will tell you that in a 24-inch window box, I'd probably use 2 tablespoons of each. So you can kind of use, take that. All right, which 3 drought-resistant purple and white and pink plants would work day in all sun containers? All right, well, the purple spiky cordyline, that's number 1. And the purple heart Setcressia, which drapes over, purple heart Setcressia, look for that one. That is very drought tolerant. Alternanthera, which is kind of burgundy foliage, and we have that in the accent plants section, that are little square planters. That is very drought tolerant. Verbenas, purple, pink, white, Superbenas from Proven Winners, cannot go wrong with them. Very drought tolerant. And the Euphorbia Diamond Frost. You saw a couple of instances of that, particularly early on in the talk, but Euphorbia Diamond Frost is another one. So, all right. Well, thank you, Trish. I'm glad you've enjoyed it. Petunias fall prey to budworm every season. You know what you need to do? You need to get either BT or spinosad, Captain Jack's, and you mix it up in early in the season, and you spray it on those petunias and on your geraniums before you see that budworm come around. All right. And so end of June, mid to end of June, spray it on, put it on your calendar every couple weeks as those plants grow, to spray either Captain Jack's, which is spinosad, or BT. Don't spray when the bees are foraging, all right? You don't want any wet product to hit bees, but that'll take care of your budworm problem for you. Can you use grocery store hydrangeas in a planter? Well, why not? But I'd prefer that you come into Hyannis Country Garden and use our wonderful country garden hydrangeas. Just saying. All right. We appreciate your support. You know, we're happy to talk about all this stuff and get people excited, but we really appreciate when you show your gratitude by giving us your business. And yes, you can use them in a planter, but know that if that planter is in a lot of sun, because the hydrangeas that have been forced for Mother's Day, which is what you find now, right? They're in full bloom. They're probably not going to last all summer. So just know that, all right? Because they're in full bloom now instead of the end of July. So keep them in the shade too. Keep them in the shade. Can I dig up my small hydrangeas and put them in a pot now? If you want to, if you have real small ones, yeah, sure, why not? In your opinion, what type is best container to use? Anything with a drainage hole and anything that you can lift. All right, if it's too heavy for you to lift, you probably, that's going to be a problem. But other than that, and as long as it's got a drainage hole, doesn't matter to me if it's plastic, ceramic, cement, fabric, whatever it is, got to have a drainage hole. Is there a source that allows you to sort what perennials are native pollinators that are drought tolerant? You know what? Look at most of the natives are drought tolerant, by the way. And again, on that informational page on our website, there is a list of native plants for pollinators. So download that list and you'll be in good shape. And this is probably the last one I'll get to, but I am saving chat right now, okay, so that I can answer the other questions on the blog early next week. What flowers can I sneak into my son-in-law's raised bed vegetable garden? Plant edible flowers, marigolds, calendula, and nasturtium, top 3. Put those in. The nasturtium can even drape out of the raised bed. They're all edible and they all attract pollinators into the vegetable garden. So once again, the hour has flown by. I'm so glad that you have chosen to spend time with me tonight. I will answer the unanswered questions in the blog early next week. And I look forward to being with you on another virtual event very soon. And by the way, the recording of this is going to be on Facebook Live, and it will be on the events page of the Hyannis Country Garden website sometime next week. Take care and have a great weekend.